You're listening to the AWAKEN Broadcast with Cecilia Angel, a space for embodied awakening, honest human conversation, and a living, breathing connection to God's source. This is your invitation to awaken. Welcome back to the AWAKEN Broadcast. I'm your host, Cecilia Angel, and today I am coming to you raw, human, open. I almost didn't record this episode today because I am feeling so vulnerable and so emotional and tender. And then I had a recognition that that's actually the best time for me to record, for me to just sit down exactly as I am. You know, I'm not here, technically this is a show, but I'm not here to put on a show for you. Because, we're here and we're talking about spirituality and we're talking about God and all of these things, awakening. But awakening is a human experience. It's a human experience. It is something that happens on the level of human. A remembrance of our humanity is holy. And that means that we have to honor all of our ways, all of the ways of being that we are. Even the days where we feel sad. And today I feel sad. I cried a lot earlier. Really big cry. I was really feeling heartbreak and sadness. Grief is actually a more specific flavor of what I've been feeling. Just grief and rage. Oh my God. I sent a message to one of my best friends earlier. It was 13 minutes long and I was yelling the whole time. Midway through, I said, "I'm not going to apologize for yelling. Thank you for receiving me. I love you." Oh, my rage is not an inconvenience. Oh, I think it's important that we honor our humanity. It was also really funny because right after that happened, I went on YouTube. Ugh, ugh. And I had somebody comment on one of my shorts and say that they could see demons in me and that I needed to repent and call on Jesus. Okay, can we talk about that for a second? And I've said this before, I have met some of the most special humans in the world that are followers of the Christian faith. And they sparkle and they shine and they are full of love and compassion and patience and grace. But then there's just some people that really seem to miss the mark. And one of my biggest fears putting myself out on the internet, because I do talk about God and I refuse to use any other word, I have a relationship with God. And yes, I have a relationship with divine, universe, all consciousness. We could give it so many different names, but when I address God, I use the word God. And it has felt so vulnerable to put myself out there because I've been really afraid of Christians. And I say this as somebody who is a devoted follower of Christ. And on one hand, I can understand that just from watching me in a little short, a little reel on Instagram or YouTube or wherever, you're not going to actually know who I am. And also the type of people that leave hurtful comments on the internet. I have so much compassion and understanding for the level of consciousness that you have to be at to judge and criticize and then actually say something to somebody that you don't even know. Because I am a human being and I experience fear. I experience insecurity. I experience heartbreak. And I will never try to Or I will at least do my best to never hide that from you. I want to be so honest, especially because I'm talking about God and spirituality. I don't want any misunderstanding. I am a human being exploring the human experience in relationship with God. And there are some people of the church that will find me and they will see that. But my biggest fear has been that I put myself out there and I am misunderstood, or people that aren't actually listening to what I'm saying will then judge me. And it's such a funny thing because you look at the type of people, you can literally look at their profile picture. Look at the profile picture of these people. And I could sink as low as to say the same. You look haunted. I bet you're so haunted. Who hurt you? But I won't. I know that it's such a slippery slope to start engaging with internet trolls. And I also know it's a risk. It's just one of the risks. I'm putting myself out there on the internet. I'm going to expose myself to all kinds of people. But here's the thing. I want to talk about that because I've gotten a few comments from people, Christians. Repent. Go back to your Bible. You need Jesus. Got Jesus. I've got Jesus in my corner. I talk to him every single day. And I'm in such deep relationship to God. And that's my own work, is to not let that get to me, but I am a human. But can we be clear on what it means to see demons in somebody? And let's just ground this down. Because all it is fear. It's fear. And I'm a human being, and I know that from time to time, in my eyes, you will see fear. Because I am afraid, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I experience fear. I experience all kinds of other things as well. I also experience courage and love and joy. But I experience fear. And I experience insecurity, and I experience that part of me that says, oh, but I'm good. Why would you say something so hurtful? I genuinely am so loving. And I try my best to, be pure, but, I get mad. I was yelling earlier. Oh, from my soul. And it felt so good. And here's the thing. Jesus understood that. Jesus understood fear. And when Jesus saw fear in another, he didn't say, there are demons in you, repent. No, he did not. He met it with love, and he provided safety and compassion and created the kind of space where fear can relax and come back into safety. This is why we hear stories of people having these major cathartic experiences in the presence of Jesus. It's because his nervous system was so calm and regulating that when you were in his energy, your body would remember what love felt like. And your body would then come into a remembrance and an attunement of love. That's what Jesus offered. And that takes years, even lifetimes of mastery to be able to hold that kind of loving space. And I'm not perfect. I'll be the first to admit it. I'm not perfect. I don't have it all figured out. I really don't. And I don't need to be. I don't need to be. Jesus is also remembered as being very human. He wasn't afraid to express his emotions and his fears. And I think that so often we can be so quick to judge what we think we see in another. Especially this day and age where we are being exposed to this fast food content. We make such flash judgments about who somebody is because we see them for maybe 3 minutes. And we're quick with our fingers. You have demons in you. Just the fact that you are saying that exposes yours too. As soon as you meet fear with fear, you are now sinking to the level of, we could say, demon, which is such a, oh, what a cruel, what's the word I'm looking for? Isolating. What an isolating thing to do to a person. And look, I know that not everybody is capable, or it's not everybody's responsibility to help somebody else with their fear. There are some people that I see fear in them and I say, blessings on your journey, and I carry on. But then there's other people I see fear in them and I know this is an opportunity to anchor into deeper love. Not to demonize them, not to judge them, not to cast them out. Because that's not what Jesus would do. What would Jesus do? Jesus sat with the lepers and the outcasts, the unlovables, the untouchables, we could say. He held compassion. And I don't expect that from everybody. Oh, definitely not. Obviously not. And so it's my work to not be so triggered by people on the internet. Especially because I'm here putting myself out there on the internet. And so I thought about, what is my response? I could record this episode a different day. Process, cry, feel my feelings. And I have been doing that. I have been doing that. I even had a healing in the remembership and had a moment of just being like, I was just yelling. Can I really show up for this? And I did. And it was beautiful what came through me. Because I was so in my human, and that's how I knew that I had to hit record today. It felt, we could say, like a sacred duty. Because we need more of this. We need more real. We need to see more human. The problem that I see with so many spiritual paths, the church very much included. Very much included. Is this absolute rejection and denial of our human tendencies, our human, just our humanity in general. And it causes us to experience such a disconnection and separation from life and from God, from our joy, from love. Shaming our body and wishing our body was different. I wish I didn't feel like this. And so inconvenient to be in this body, to be a human. We judge one another for having very human responses, primal responses. Don't act like an animal. Last year I brought through a 10-week journey called Animal, the Primal Revolution, where I taught about this in depth. I also have a 2-part masterclass, Holy Human, where we talk about what a tragedy it is that we have rejected our humanity so deeply. It's caused us to be disconnected. It's almost like a paradox in a way. That the way to get closer to God and to oneness and union is actually to be as deeply in your body and in your life and in your humanity as possible. To embrace the imperfection and to just be with what is and stop trying to fix it and change it. Make it prettier. Be more good. I have found that it's in my most human moments that I feel the most connected to God. In my most raw moments, where the masks come down and there's no filter. And I'm just me. In whatever way I am just me in that moment. That's always when I hear the voice of God the loudest. And yet, so many paths reject and deny the body. And its urges, its desires, its needs, its emotions, the ways it expresses. So many of the things that people call demonic are actually just our human primal body working to express itself because it's been so suppressed for so long. And when you suppress a part of yourself for an extended period of time, when you are suppressed that deeply, I mean, think about this. You put an animal in a cage, a sweet, innocent animal that had freedom and sovereignty and could just experience its life. You put it in a cage for an hour. That animal's going to want to get out. Okay, for a day, a week, a month, 30 years, lifetimes of suppression. That animal within you is just going to be, let me out. And you know what it does? It bares its teeth. There's rage, hurt. How dare you? And because we are suppressing ourselves, those parts of ourselves that we are suppressing, that we have put in the shadows, begins to act out against us. And so really, when we point fingers and we say, you're being demonic or shadowy or bad, we are actually furthering the pain of saying, well, you're bad, so keep that in the shadows. Don't be like that. That's bad. And then it gets worse and worse and worse. Imagine, just think about the parts of yourself that you have put in a cage and how they actually feel. To be hidden away, to be shamed, to be judged, to be told that they're wrong. When it's all really just primal. Our sexuality, our hunger, our desire, our need for survival, our emotional needs. When those are unmet, those parts of ourselves go kind of feral. And when we start to set them free, they come out with their teeth bared in their claws. Ready to attack, ready to fight. Afraid, terrified. And it's usually a little child. If you look at your shadows long enough and you hold with love, eventually that big scary will dissolve away, and what you will find is a small child that is and was afraid. And that's what you're afraid of in other people. And that's what so many are demonizing in other people, which then perpetuates the cycle, and then we'll never be free. Pretty messed up, actually. Again, I talk about this in depth. Holy Human as well as Animal, The Primal Revolution. I'll link it all below. In depth. And it's incredibly liberating when you start to see it. Oh, God. I've been putting myself in a cage. And I've been fighting to get out of this cage. And we have to have patience. When we uncage a part of ourselves, one, it takes time. We don't want to do this too quickly. But when we uncage a suppressed part of ourselves, first, it's going to probably be mad. And it's going to show you the side of itself that you have judged, that you don't like. You got to hold love long enough until finally all the fight leaves. And it's just fear. Scared animal, a scared child. Didn't have its needs met, didn't experience love, maybe there was abandonment, rejection. Afraid. And we've all experienced it because we are all humans and we are all animals existing in a primal body. And so, I know there's some people out there that are well-meaning when they go around saying, oh, this is demonic and that's demonic, and warning people about the dangers of whatever the thing is they've decided is dangerous. But what the world really needs is better space holders. People who have met their own shadows deep enough that when they come up against somebody else's shadows, they don't flinch. And they know exactly what is actually happening there. So that rather than meeting fear with more fear, which feeds the fear and just creates a perpetuating cycle of fear, you can then practice meeting fear with love and being able to hold love in the face of fear so that that fearful part can then be transmuted back to love. That takes mastery. It takes mastery. And it starts with the self. You need to be a better space holder for yourself. Because the only thing that I've seen as a result of anyone going down that path of like, this is demonic or that is demonic, which is also a very dangerous path, by the way. If we're talking about the dangers, even just pointing fingers and saying things are demonic is a very dangerous path. It can be very harmful for both the person doing it and the one on the receiving end. Very dangerous. But what I see in that is somebody who doesn't know how to meet their own shadows, who hasn't been courageous enough to be with themselves and to learn how to meet themselves. Pointing fingers at other people. You're bad and you're wrong and you're shadowy and you're evil and you're dark and you're demonic. But if you actually took the time to go inward and observe yourself, you would not be saying things like that. You wouldn't be perpetuating fear. And personally, I am very tired of the fear spreading agenda of Christianity. This is why I don't identify as a Christian, even though I am a follower of Christ. Because I do not want any part in that. Even people saying that they are God-fearing, in some ways, God is terrifying. God is scary. But God is also very loving and very kind, very warm. God is not this smiting, judging, criticizing. Like, what? I just can't even wrap my mind around, especially because I know God. I know the love of God. And because I know the love of God, I know I have nothing to fear, even when I see and God shows me the more terrifying aspects of itself, which God has shown me as a reflection of the most terrifying aspects of myself. And God shows me its most beautiful aspects as a reflection of my most beautiful aspects. But there is such a narrative. And I've been really deeply, I had an experience last year that was really scary. I had a really scary experience that actually rocked my faith. And I'm not going to go into that story today. I'm not ready to tell that story. I'm sure I will. And it's a crazy story. I literally died and have had to come back from the dead. It's truly been a journey, a season of resurrection since then. And what happened was it forced me to I had to kind of cling on to faith. For the first time in a really long time, that was scary for me to have my trust and my faith in God rocked so violently. And I turned to the church. I turned to Jesus. And I mean, I've been following Jesus for some time, but it was deeper than ever before. One of my dear friends, she turned to the church and Jesus and did the whole New Age to Christianity switch. And I really trust her. And so I just got curious about it. I'm like, okay, I love Jesus. I'm not going to, maybe this is a moment to really lean in. And I started kind of exploring more of the Christian concepts and just getting more involved in that world. And time again, I just kept coming up against this fearful narrative of being afraid of God, of being afraid of self, not being able to trust the self, which in and of itself, if we're going to talk about demonic, like the separation that is created through a lot of the Christian narratives makes me deeply uncomfortable. If you use the word sovereignty in terms of I'm in charge of my personal choices and what happens to my body and in my life, if you start talking about sovereignty around Christians, oh, you're not sovereign. I have free will and I actually am sovereign. I am in true governance of my life. Now, that doesn't mean and this is something that I think is really important to understand. Because what is really the true teaching of that is that God is ultimately governing all of it and therefore is governing your life. And are you really sovereign if you are operating through God's will? But it's important to God that your free will matches divine will. God is not forcing you to do anything. In fact, I'd be very concerned if God was saying you have to do this or else you're bad. No. God will always invite. This is what would be of benefit to you. Is what might be best for you. I'll give you opportunities to move in accordance with what your soul truly desires through God. But only when you make a sovereign choice to live in accordance with God will you find true freedom. And it has to happen sovereignly. I find, and this is edgy for me to say, but I'm going to say it, I find a lot of the traditional Christian path to be very flaccid. And I use that word intentionally. Oh, well, it's just God's will and nothing I can do about it. And I'm just going to pray to God and hope it all works out. And hopefully God, well, no, that is not what God wants for you. God wants you to be in charge of your life and your choices. God has offered you sovereign free will so that you can take action on the things that you are being divinely guided towards. And you can feel empowered by that choice. And when you really are living in that kind of dynamic with God, where you're actually saying, yes, God, yes, God, yes, God. Yes, God, thank you. Yes. Oh, life is going to feel like you're not going to have anything to fear. It's not going to feel so scary. But you don't just wake up one day there. At first, you have to build your faith. And I actually think it's not linear. It's not a linear thing of you suddenly get over your fear and now you're just never fearful again. Or you come into faith and now you're just always faithful again. No, there's another level. There's another level, and you'll be tested and you'll grow and you'll evolve and you'll learn the whole way through. And this forces a listening from moment to moment to moment. I'm listening, God. I'm listening to your word. I'm taking action on your word. And I'm staying in my own lane. I'm not going to worry about other people's demons, Head down, heart forward. Because that judgment and that finger pointing is incredibly harmful. And it causes great confusion. When I did this, I started exploring Christianity and I was asking God, do I go to the church? Do I read the Bible? What do you ask of me? I'll do it. I love Jesus. I'll do it. And I heard no. Okay. That's just not the path that I'm meant to learn, and that's okay. And people are going to have their things to say about that and whatever. And it's such an interesting thing because oftentimes when people talk about their testimony of moving from New Age to Christianity and, the distortion that cleared and I had never been so at peace. And all of a sudden I had no confusion and I was over here exploring all of that, getting really confused. And genuinely, with such genuine curiosity. Because one of my dearest friends, one of my closest friends, her life was revolutionized and it made me think twice. Okay, let me explore this a little bit more deeply. I love God and maybe this is here for a reason. And I've actually been spending the last, wow, I could get emotional, month or so, maybe 2 months, unraveling the intense confusion that came into my field when I started looking to Christianity, which was really hard because when I brought Jesus into my life, I experienced that peace. I experienced that calm years ago. And I stood so firmly in, I'll take Jesus, but I'll leave the rest. And that worked for me. And I have my relationship with God and that's enough. And I was learning directly. I used to go to this Bible. There's a Bible study group for misfits. People that don't feel like they fit fully into the church. And we would read these Bible verses. And then afterwards I would be like, well, this is the way that God taught it to me. And God taught me directly. And I would kind of be sheepish when I would say it. Like, yeah, this is how I understand it based on the way that God directly taught me that. Almost every single time that I went to this Bible study. It made me really uncomfortable. And I could feel the way it made them uncomfortable. Well, if you didn't read it in the Bible, how could you possibly know that? Well, because I'm in direct communion with God, aren't you? And I started to, even when I was doing that and I was going to church, I went to a church. I should say I went to a church one time during that period. It was another time where I was exploring Christianity, like maybe because I really love Jesus. I went to church and so much of what they were saying, like, I can feel God in this space, but I can tell that you just don't get it. That sucks because I want a space to worship. And I could tell when I would be in these Bible studies, I would say, well, how do you know that? God told me. God taught me that. I don't know what else to say, and I don't want to I shouldn't have to explain myself. That didn't make sense to me. That it wasn't being prioritized to learn directly from God, and that it was being taught to distrust your connection to God in the church, which is exactly the opposite of what Jesus taught. And so I've been unraveling. I thank God I don't have such a depth of entanglement in the church that I feel it will be relatively simple, but there's also on a soul level some entanglement with the church that has been pretty hard for me. And I think it's necessary too, as I'm sharing this podcast, because obviously I talk about God. I don't know how to not talk about God. God is my teacher through and through. I'm in communication with God every single day. So I've been having to unravel, which has made me really sad. Because I remember who I was before what I call the incident, which again, I'm not going to tell you the story right now, but the thing that happened last year that scared me so much that I turned to the church. Oh, I felt so certain before that. So confident, so connected. And then I felt like I got diverted in a way. And I've just been finding my way back to God, finding my way back to God. And I feel God, even now, I feel God saying, just come home to me. I've been here. Even before I, gave my life to Jesus, God was already there. I didn't find God through Jesus. I found Jesus through God. God came to me and scooped me up, said, I got you. Here's something new. And God has really shown me how to love myself in my most raw and human places, how to accept myself there. The way that God has loved me through those moments has shown me how to do it for myself. And even in the church, there's this conversation around like being self-centered. Like if you're being self-centered, it's which is such a dangerous word. The fact that we're just throwing that around willy-nilly. Oh my God. And just I can tell that you've got demons, that you're demonic. Oh my God. That is so dangerous for the psyche. Like I am pretty solid in who I am. And when I got that comment today and somebody said that to me, that hit me really deep. Like, ow, what? No. Am I afraid? Yes. But demonic? I devote my whole life to love. I've been through some shit. It just like it starts this whole thing. I just imagine people who feel less empowered. Like there's such a disempowering narrative that's happening in the church, and that actually really makes me uncomfortable. Makes me really uncomfortable. Because if we're disconnected from self, we're leaving so many doorways open to anything else, which is the exact thing that the Christians are trying to warn against. Makes my brain melt a little bit. We actually need to be anchored in self in order to be in close relationship with God and to push out all the noise of everyone else in order to be in service to God. In order to be able to hear God's voice clearly, we have to push out everyone else on all dimensions. One of my signature practices, just me, pushing out the noise from your sovereign field of frequency so that the only voice that you hear within your sovereign field of frequency is the voice of your soul and the voice of God. So that it's not distorted by everybody else and their thoughts and opinions. And I've been thinking about this a lot as I've been unraveling from Christian dogma. And I'm even frustrated with myself that I fell for that trap. I knew better. I've always known better. Don't get sucked into that. And I'm so vulnerable to it because I love Jesus. And I love Buddha. And I love anyone that understands God. I love God. That's the key. And I feel that's where I'm coming back to after a time of, honestly, confusion. And just in March, it's April now. In March, I led a 30-day Vipassana meditation course challenge. And a lot of my spiritual understanding has come from Buddhism. I have a deep foundation in Buddhism and Buddhist practice. Vipassana has changed my life. I teach it. I practice it. It informs my whole body of work. And it's been so funny because, the week after the incident, and now I'm going to have to tell you the story. I will when I'm ready. Give me a second. It's a heavy story. A week after the incident, I went into a solo 10-day silent Vipassana meditation. And thank God, because it really helped me to ground. Practice of Vipassana really helped me to anchor back down after an experience that really disrupted me, that I didn't expect and needed, but also felt kind of inconvenient. And so I did my 10 days and I just did it right here. 10.5 hours a day, Vipassana meditation, 10 days straight, silent, no eye contact. My husband's in the house. We just avoided each other for the 10 days. And then Buddha came in strong once again as my teacher. And then shortly after that, Jesus. And so for the last, 6 months? Something like that, 7 months? My primary teachers have been Jesus and Buddha, and for a while there, they almost felt like they were at odds with each other. But as I was teaching Vipassana, all through March, created a course, the Vipassana Experiment. I'll drop the link below in case you want it. Vipassana meditation will change your life. It's the best ever. I realized that I've got Buddha and Jesus with me. What a dream team. And I have to unhook from any dogma, and I need to push out all the noise, and I can feel Buddha and Jesus in my ear being like, quiet down, child. God speaking through them. Oh. So it really did cause me some strife. Like, am I Buddhist? Am I Christian? Even though for years I've known I don't follow one path. I will not. I have to follow the path of my soul and where God leads me. And if I trap myself in any box, then it's incredibly difficult to follow the path that God is leading me on. Or to hear the voice of God in a pure, clean way. So, yeah. I'm unhooking from Christianity once again. I'm grateful for Buddhism. for helping me to see clear, truly, and grateful for God for being behind all of it. I'm grateful for an opportunity to really just lean into my human because, and I've shared this before, when God first started coming to me, I mean, especially as somebody who has experienced the depth of trauma that I have, and the visions and the things that I was receiving and the things I was hearing, I just sat there being like, but I just want to be a human being, really clinging on to my human. Like, can I talk about God but still just be normal? Can I be connected spiritually and able to see and feel and sense, but still just get to be a girl? And God is really answering my prayers these days. Because this is actually, there was some part of me, my ego had this idea of what it would be like to be Cecilia the Oracle. Cecilia, awaken with Cecilia. I had this idea of what that had to look like in order for me to be respected and trusted. But joke's on me, the way to be respected and trusted is to be as close to my human as possible while speaking about these concepts and rooting it back to our humanity. And that feels good. It feels relieving to my body. It feels like less pressure. Like I don't have to live up to some impossible standard anymore. And I feel more awakened, more enlightened than ever before because of that. That brings me into a different level of presence than I've ever experienced, a different level of peace and clarity. Funny how that works, you know? Gosh. This life is really wild. Like if I could go back, if I could go back and talk to my past self, and I mean I can. Hello, past self, right here within me. Be here with me as I say this. This is what I would say. I know that you're so afraid of what is happening through you and what you are seeing and what you are feeling and all that is coming alive. I know you have this idea of what that has to look like in order for you to do it well. But it's way more simple than you realize, and you will see that one day. You're making this harder on yourself than it needs to be. I can feel even that past self being like, I don't know. You don't seem very awakened. You seem a little too normal. Did you give up on the path? Not at all. Not at all. Never been more connected in my life. God, it's so funny. I think I'm going to land the plane there. I hope you receive so much value from this. And I'm going to keep working on, I'm just getting used to doing it this way. I'm getting used to being here like this. And I want to be as real and as authentic as I can be. And I'm really devoted to that. But I sometimes get scared. Sometimes my ego comes up. Sometimes I get judgmental of myself. And sometimes I'm afraid of the Christians and what they'll say about me. Will they think I'm good? Or will they tell me I'm demonic? I'm working through some things. As any human is. I don't have it all figured out, but I am certainly doing my best. And anything that I do discover, I'm happily sharing. Because Because I feel, and I've said this since the beginning of since I started my work, we don't have to walk this path alone, nor should we. I tried to walk my spiritual path all by myself for so long, and it just took way longer than it needed to. And so I think it's just really useful. I know it's really useful to share ourselves openly so that not only from a human perspective, but from a spiritual perspective and merging it. Because I'm both having a very human experience, working out just human stuff from this lifetime, pains and hurts and heartbreak and abandonment and all the things, working that out while also working out my spiritual stuff and like soul level stuff and consciousness stuff, multiple lifetime stuff. It's all happening right here. So, yeah, I'm trying to keep it real with you. Thank you so much for being with me. Thank you for listening to my podcast. I'm so grateful. I hope you're enjoying it. It is my highest prayer to benefit you so deeply through this and to grow and evolve, to best serve you and to be the best version of myself and live this life as fully and completely with as much presence as I am able. Thank you for listening. I'm sending you so much love. I will see you next Tuesday. Bye for now. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for the Awaken Broadcast. If this episode resonated with you, supported you, or awakened something within you, I'd love for you to subscribe or follow the show. Leave a review, share it with a friend, or drop a comment wherever you're listening or watching. It genuinely helps this work reach the people it's meant for, and I'm very grateful for that. If you want to go deeper, you can find me on Instagram at Awaken with Cecilia, Cecilia, or explore everything I offer at awakenwithcecilia.com. I've linked it all for you in the show notes, masterclasses, my monthly membership, and other ways to dive in. Thanks again for being here. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next broadcast. Until then, I'm sending you so much love.